You have one new message. Hey, this is Phil from the Small Wiener Club. Sorry to get back to you so late. I just finished reviewing your application and information you sent in. But I am sorry to say that I don't think I can allow you to join our group. From what I'm looking at, your wiener is massive. I mean, the sheer girth and juiciness alone is ridiculous. It looks as if somebody glued a forearm to the bottom of your torso. You could probably stand on it like a tripod. And that's not even mentioning how fat your nuts are. But it does appear that you're going to have to take that ginormous schmeat somewhere else. But thank you for trying, and best of luck to you.
Welcome back to the Barzal Life Podcast. My name's Sebastian Shug, as always, and with me, as always.
After 20 episodes, I'm still Ryan Mancini.
God, a fifth of the way to 100%. You know, it's still an F on the paper, but in our hearts, yeah. My God, it's already been 20 episodes. We've been doing a little bit of experimentation. Well, I have, at least, since driving back from Colorado. Fun fact, the airport in Denver is still hell on earth, so I decided it'd be in my best interest to essentially chug a rock star and then make my way diagonally across Utah. So that was a highlight.
Hey, that's how you get through my ancestors' motherland. So you know what? That's if that's how you do it, that's how you do it.
It's ridiculous how flat and barren that state is, you know, and not to offend the percentage which you can extrapolate from the 92% of our listeners who happen to be in the United States, but my God, as beautiful as it is, it sure is a fucking wasteland out there. Who cares about red rocks? I mean, shit.
Well, it never registers with me whenever you hear people that happen to support our current administration who like to say in regards to immigration, we're full. If we're so full, how do you explain all of that space in the West? I mean, like, forget math for a second. It just, on its face, makes no bloody sense. You know,
I'm not even one for dissing kind of like the beauty of it, because I can understand the whole beauty and solace mantra, but you know, that's if you're surrounded. So where I was Colorado Springs, right? And around there, you generally have like at least a decently thriving community. Okay, but this was just nothing. You'd pass on the interstate, little towns that literally said underneath the town were, you know, until the miles reached to get there, no services available. So it wasn't even a city that you can go get gas in. And it's like, what if you were stranded out here, legitimately stranded in the middle of fucking Utah?
Yeah. Oh, it's miraculous how following the late 1840s, you know, the whole mantra was, you know, God wants me to go there. Well, you got there, and clearly God left you ghosting, because you did nothing. Like, you took the land, you killed everybody else, and what'd you do with it? You built your house, but you left everything barren. It's, you know, it's one of those things when you read about it in history classes, or you learn about it in history classes, you just kind of take it as American bravado. But then when you actually get to drive through, like, you know, there's parts of California that are completely empty, which amazes you, because California is one of the most populous states in the country. And yet we have spaces where you're literally scratching your head thinking, there is no human nearby. It is just me. It's me, myself, and I. Oh, I hope I don't get lost.
Anyway, regardless of that, when you're in absolute sheer emptiness, your mind tends to race a little bit. And thankfully, what that means for our show is a lot of experimentation on our part in regards to actually getting these episodes out there. We had a little bit of a hiccup recording last episode. It wouldn't show up, which was kind of funny. It kind of gave me a little bit of a heart attack. But aside from that, we have actually gone, and this is our official statement here, we've actually gone visual. Yes, we do have a visual. So be sure to look, excuse me, be sure to be on the lookout for our Mars on Life episodes on our official Mars on Life YouTube channel, complete with audio visualization and everything. I know I had to relearn After Effects just to do it, and at the end of the day, it was exporting at like over 20 gigabytes, so it's like, okay, time to relearn this. So.
Yeah,
but
and just wait until we're three-dimensional.
Oh, goody. Just wait until we can actually go out and see people, okay? I'm not saying that I wish California would be like Colorado in regards to, letting your children run amok in fucking Target without masks, but
well, it's already doing that. It's already
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. The beaches simply must be open for the 4th of July.
And you know what the funny thing is about living in California, and especially around summer. I haven't really commented this until now, but people in California always like to rave about, the beach being close. Okay, given. Why is it that whenever I see anyone's social media, it is the muggiest, smoggiest day in the history? This is why you want to move to California, to go to the beach where the sky is gray?
I think you're just unlucky.
What do you mean a good day at the beach?
I don't know, man. Every time I open up Instagram and I have friends that are at the beach, it typically looks fairly nice. And mind you, our friend circles cross. I mean,
I don't know, man.
We have a lot of the same mutual friends.
Every single time, maybe it's just the specific beach that they're going to, but there's only a handful, It's only a handful, and every single time I see it, it's like, oh, great day for the beach. I'm like, okay, I get it. You didn't want to be cooped up inside all day. But it's not even bright out, and it's June. Anyway. Yeah.
I was going to say, too, in my defense, I as far as I know, and when I say as far as I know, I'm referring to the people that I know who are going to beaches. As far as I know, these are people who are still in California going to California beaches. I know people that live on the beach in Rio that don't even broadcast going to the beach in Rio de Janeiro. Like they're not like, look at me at Ipanema Beach. That like never happens, or at least with the people that I know, it never happens anymore. But even when it did happen, it was pretty minimal. So, it is what it is.
Yeah.
At least
it is what it is. Yeah.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Well, I guess recapping what's been going on without sounding too much like a broken record from our last two episodes, disease is still rampant and disenfranchisement is still based on melanin alone. In other news, weather at 6. So what have you been up to recently?
Well, speaking of weather at 6, Fritz Coleman from NBC4 is retiring. So shout out to him. Yeah, for 40 years. God. I'm used to him, and the fact that he's retiring is like, damn, that's a change. No, everything has been fine here. I've been trying to manage a few things here and there that's local. Some things more successfully than others. I did get to finish reading that Set the Night on Fire book that I mentioned last week. If you're listening to the show and if you are just as passionate about Los Angeles history as I am, definitely pick that up. And for all of you CSUN students listening, you better pick it up because you're not going to get a history lesson on CSUN anywhere else except from this book. And that's not true. You can actually find a lot of great places that'll talk about Valley State College, as it was known back in the day. But but it's rich history. You're gonna find it in Set the Night on Fire by Mike Davis and John Wiener. Yeah. Other than that,
I was gonna say ex-CSUN students. You mean? I mean, I'm pretty sure that the majority of them are graduated.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I think
still to the dismay of I don't even want to say recent events because it's been going on for months now.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't have a proper graduation. And the thing about that, I'm not one to attack. Let's be serious. Yes, I am. The attitudes of those, in specifics, most specifically, those who are distraught about this turn of events. And I don't know. I may have mentioned it last episode. I may have not. Forgive me if I did. But is it just me, or am I not taking this as badly as the majority of, I would say, most college students graduating? I understand the circumstances, and I understand the risk of getting people together. And I very much appreciate the sense of community brought upon by digital means such as Discord and Minecraft and Animal Crossing, where you have all these people together digitally to graduate. I think that's amazing. But I don't know. I got my email actually yesterday saying that my degree is en route in the mail.
Okay.
And part of me was just like, this is okay. I mean, you didn't experience that. Obviously, you had a whole ceremony and everything.
Well, that's just it. Even when I got my diploma in the mail, for one thing, my mail lady folded the envelope, even though it said on the packaging, "Don't bend." So I ended up with, if you look at my Instagram, you'll find a post with a very bent, if you will, diploma. And, it was weird because it was kind of like, well, I worked this hard for a piece of paper, and this is how the piece of paper is treated. Like, shit, I'm scared to know how, the work environment is going to be like for me. Little did I know that in 3 years' time, there would be no work environment. So, it's kind of like, to graduate from college right now, it has to be on the same level as what it was like to graduate from college back in 2008.
I'd imagine. And to really curb everyone's enthusiasm about, pursuing higher education, every master's degree, or really any undergraduate degree if you're coming in from high school, I've said this before, I'll say it again, it's all going to be University of Phoenix anyway. Okay? There is no program going to be doing... There's no physical program anymore, I'm guessing. Okay? Right. So, to everyone so gung-ho about going to a certain college, or if you're in that high school stage of comparing yourself to other people going to colleges and seeing how yours rank, it doesn't matter. I mean, sure, you're going to get the name at the end, but, really, it's all online.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, growing up, one of the things that I always heard people say is that when it comes to graduating, college graduation is what matters far more than high school graduation. And some of those people, I need to go back and give them a refresher, because as I've come to learn a lot of different things about the education system and how massively flawed that it is, to be a student, and, it just depends on where you are and where you grew up. If you grew up where I did, graduating from high school is about as easy as buying cheese at your local Vons. But if you're growing up in a different part of Southern California, it is an achievement. And, I'm not going to poo-poo, kids that live in areas that, the level, their chances for advancement is limiting. And this is like the first success that a student has had in his or her whole life. I'm going to give all the power to them. I mean, I once had a discussion with, I guess I'll just simply refer to them as some older individuals regarding a friend of the show who graduated, and he got 2 graduations. He had his major, And mind you, this was somebody who graduated from college, not high school. But he graduated both in regards to his major, but he also had a special graduation for students of color. And these older individuals got real hot, as Al Pacino would say, where, I told them, yeah, they've also got black graduation, and they nearly lost it. And I had to explain to them, look, this is why something like this exists. Like, it is a level of achievement that, let's face it, if white people did it, it'd be really awkward, not to mention it wouldn't make sense. So it was something where I was able to educate somebody on this matter. But, with high school, it's, again, I'm going to evaluate it based on the high school, because I'm sure you've noticed it. A lot of the local news stations will show like graduates from all the local high schools in and around SoCal.
Yeah, in and around SoCal, not Burbank Unified, which pisses me off personally.
Oh, really?
I'm an alumni from there. Yeah, no. They did GHS, so they did Glendale, Hoover, Pasadena, Studio City, not Burbank or John Burroughs, which, to keep the mystery alive, I won't tell you which one. Of course, but no Burbank Unified.
Wow. And I haven't noticed.
And I kind of understand. I kind of understand the whole LA Unified. There's there's more students in that district, granted. And to kind of further your point, I will poo-poo my handling of it, because it was really as easy as you said it was, but also because, I'll just be honest, Burbank being a very gated community, it's kind of hard to have any modicum of humbleness when literally everything is handed you here. Like, I'm not saying that was how it was for me, but I'm not going to say it was the hardest existence growing up in this area.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I mean,
the teachers definitely didn't help out as well in, situating ourselves for college.
Well, and my experience with Burbank schools is minimal because, I was only there when I was really young, and I had a couple teachers that were okay. Outside of that, I ended up becoming at the mercy of the schools out in Santa Clarita. It's, and on top of that, I was mercy to the demographics and, the kinds of students that were coming to school, that happened to be a little more politically opposite of my own. So I was certainly a dark horse at my campus, and I did not mind it. But it's overall, I mean, I think the graduation season, it's good to kind of see it finally come to a close, just because, that's just it. And I know I brought this up in the last episode about coronavirus and, people complaining about getting their haircuts, where I basically said, oh, well, your status quo changed. Well, mine did too. I lost a job. And I think that's arguably where the focus, I think, should be moving forward, since we're now done with the school year-ish. I kind of think we need to have more stress in our reporting as to what is going on with just the jobs market. Because let me tell you, if you think you're going to make money off of stocks and sitting behind your computer watching the stock market, you're kidding yourself, because the working class doesn't care about that stuff.
Well, not
working
only
class
that,
wants jobs.
I'm gonna look you right in the eye, Mancini. I'm gonna ask you, do you really think that you can compete with these fucking bigwigs at the top? No, you can't. And if you want to base your very fucking being, no matter, let's just say that COVID didn't even exist.
Right.
You want to base your entire being monetarily on what your portfolio is? I'm sorry. It doesn't sound that much of a life to me, okay?
Well, hey, that's...
I can very much understand seeking enjoyment for the sake of doing so because, yeah, having a lot of money is a very nice thing. Okay.
Yeah.
But I ask you, and I also ask the audience, what is fulfilling about that? What is fulfilling about wanting to be this faux Jordan Belfort-esque character and thinking that you're hot shit because you can read the market? Well, you know what? Market's going to keep going down, dude. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how much I've lost in my personal 401k, and I'm still pissed about that.
Well, it's kind of like, you got to think of it this way. And you can put it within the broad scope of American history, or you can just narrow it down to the Great Depression of 1929 or the Great Recession of 2008.
Yeah,
Now,
two similar circumstances.
exactly. And, you don't have, that's just it. You don't have a figure, well, okay, that's, because of the Great Depression, you could argue the figure who came out of that really, personified the, overcoming a hurdle and, somebody who was for, or at least masqueraded as for the middle class was FDR. Now, I would argue with those people, FDR literally had his hands tied to push the New Deal. And so basically my point being, it wasn't his original idea. And on top of that, there's other things within his presidency that deserve greater scrutiny that, in my opinion, totally tarnish his administration. Fast forward to 2008, there was a great biography, a little wonky, but a great biography on Obama's whole presidency that details what went on during the initial phase of the Obama administration needing to at least, put a stop to the markets from really tanking and basically putting them on a, oh my goodness, how many years now? A 12-year trajectory to tanking even worse in the not too distant future. You basically learned that they were doing all the kinds of things that weren't going to help just so they can please a bunch of middle-aged white men in the opposition. And unless you want to point to somebody like Mitch McConnell, or if we're going to flash back to history, Herbert Hoover, as being these like unsung heroes, then you don't understand history and you don't understand the situation. There isn't this messiah who comes out of these situations who says, the stocks must be like this. There's no, Jeffersonian John Adams figure who shows up as like the moral authority. It's basically a bunch of unsung heroes that pressure an executive. And if you're, a trade unionist, the executive is the enemy. But you're basically relying on an executive to push through something that he, and in this case it is a he, that he does not endorse. And in the case of 2008, it was the same thing, except he also knew that he had to be delicate with giving the bare minimum, otherwise the opposition would give an even more bare minimum. So, long story short, there ain't going to be no Midas touch or, look at that flick of the switch for something to change in regards to Great Depression 2 that we're in.
It's not even approached in a humble way, and like I was saying in previous episodes regarding, kind of like these fake entrepreneurs, or I call them contrepreneurs, or these like gurus that give you this asinine financial advice. I could imagine that any sort of day trader persona, and this is just kind of spitballing here, when you approach one of these people, they tend to give off an air of not only I know more than you, because they do this silently, right?
Yeah.
They give you quote unquote advice about when you should theoretically invest. Now, if you say this as, kind of a hot tip, for someone who's, really interested in the market, how it works and everything like that. That's fine. Thing is, I don't give a shit. And I could probably guarantee that you don't give a shit either, because it's not like making money isn't our thing. Yeah, everyone wants to do so. But
Yeah.
to pretty much bolster yourself as this aura of financial know-how into a volatile gladiator pit of hills and valleys. I'm really trying to like instill as many metaphors in here as I can, but really I don't understand how this is something that you can just brag about with proposed utmost certainty. This is what's going to happen. I highly recommend you invest now. Okay, what if I do invest now and lose it all? Okay, because you just gave me advice. Oh, well, you got to learn how to read the markets, man. Like, I can't just hold your hand through everything. Well, you were holding my hand through it before. Okay. What the fuck?
It's a part of this narcissism that developed after the 80s, where literally everybody took Gordon Gekko's mantra of greed is good. And when I mean everybody, I literally mean everybody. Like, it seemed like even like sororities in colleges in the 80s were taking that as advice and instilling it onto their membership, so that, fast forward 3-4 decades, they're still behaving that way, but it's still narcissistic, because, any kind of shared common good has basically been told, no, it's not about the common good. It's about your good.
Hold on. Mm-hmm. You mean to tell me in college in 2020, in societies like Greek life, there's nepotism? No way. You're telling me that if I join a fraternity, I get to be as cool as the other guy? Forget it. Forget it.
Oh, and not only that, you'll be so cool that when people notice how specific you are in your own personal gain and personal success, they'll look to you as being an alpha male, which that in of itself is an outdated concept.
Oh.
So basically, it's society relying off of outdated forms of classism and narcissism, and to some degree nihilism, that basically is the mindset of getting out of college now and thinking you're going to be the next, I don't know, what's his name? Jeffrey Epstein. Minus the criminal shit. So
the most Chad thing to do is ironically the most insecure thing to do, emblazoning letters across your chest and thinking that you're hot shit, thinking that you're an alpha male. Okay. Yeah, I'll pass. But the thing is, it's kind of too late for us. We kind of already both went down the same route.
Oh yeah, that was the Force vision from Empire Strikes Back, where we both went in without our weapons and we came back out somehow with them. Somehow. So this is narcissism up the wazoo, and it's a mindset that, in my eye, is entirely ignorant of the fact that we're basically living in one giant absurd world. Like absurdity, farce, idiocy, if you want to include that. I would argue it has not been at such a zenith as it has now, and I think a part of that kind of ties in with what we were just talking about. I mean, think about it. With presidential candidates like Mitt Romney or the current chief executive, you literally had people who all throughout the 80s thought, we need to have a real businessman as our executive. Like, it's going to take it's going to take a real CEO to be the, commander in chief. And the funny thing about that, and it's funny, but it's also like sad funny, is that that's led us down the path that we're currently on, where clearly you were too late in getting your business exec into the White House, and now it's like one big frickin' Twilight Zone episode. When you have a stagnant culture and a society that just wants to feed you the same sludge over and over and over and over again artistically, you got to go outside of that.
Like I said in the beginning, the world just keeps going more and more to shit. What is there left to even talk about? Okay, because you don't want to be the guy continuously standing up on a soapbox thinking that you know everything about a certain issue, or by stating that, oh, I'm stating this issue for commentary, makes you such an intellectual. Okay,
right.
And I'm not saying that this forum isn't to do just that, which is ironic. Again, I really don't have an answer for that. All I can do is just kind of give my take on it, hope I don't sound arrogant, and kind of just continue on with my day, and hope that my words stick in some degree in contrast to maybe others. But I like to kind of pose that very same question in current media. Okay, so and I'm going to roll the clock back a few weeks, or about a week and a half, when everyone was posting the black squares on Blackout Tuesday. Okay. And I just want to pose this situation as someone who hasn't partaken yet. Did you post that black square simply out of, personal, you feel that there is a personal responsibility in order to share your perspective, or was it brought upon by the stage B level posts where if you didn't post this, you'd be regarded as this? Okay. And is that kind of coercion? Is that even helping?
Right. Well,
because it really doesn't allow you to have a dialogue first and foremost, where I think having a dialogue in this specific time period with what's happening is very crucial. Okay.
Yeah.
But not only that, it doesn't even allow you to even state your own perspective on the matter. And I come from a place of wanting to do so with my most recent book, Read Their Names. And like you and I know, I was met with a fair amount of criticism from it. And I'm like, dude, I thought this was supposed to be done in good faith, not only monetarily, because it is and was still being donated to the Minnesota Freedom Fund, but I thought the intentions were pretty sound.
Well, I think there's two aspects to that. There's the question, and then there's the other aspect that you went through, which I'll tackle that first, because I kind of went through something similar where, and it's something that I personally encountered a few times in regards to the protests, where I've said this before and I'll say it again, it's so beautiful to see a lot of young people marching and finally saying, I have had enough with racism. Yes. I have had enough with Donald Trump. I have had enough with the LAPD and all police. But, and this is something that this is just something that's part of me. You can't, if you take this away from me, you're basically, you don't have a Ryan Mancini left. But you need to have the facts on your side.
Yeah.
And in case of some protests that were going on near where I live, I met up with a buddy of mine he's also named Sebastian, who lives out here. And he and I were on the same page, politically speaking. We're on the same page in regards to the protests and, what's going down, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, he and I are pretty good. Now, I showed up at a protest that he was also at, and I approached somebody there who they had a bullhorn, and they were basically saying this specific city council member needs to resign. Now, without going into the full details about this specific city council member, or at least the personal details, this is an individual who has a history of basically thinking, basically being very emphatic and passionate about their racism. So much so that people out here like that aspect of him. I will repeat, there are people out here that like the fact that there is a city council member who refers to himself as a proud racist. However, this gentleman is retiring, and so therefore he will not be running for re-election again come November. Great. The guy is finally leaving. Wonderful. But then you have protesters that are saying, vote him out of office, vote him out of office, make sure he doesn't win re-election. And I had to approach one of the guys with the bullhorn, and I told him, hey, man, this guy's retiring. He's not on the ballot anymore. He will never be on the ballot. And at one point, I had somebody tell me that I was part of the problem. And I'm like, dude, sorry that I'm more informed than you, but if you don't like the truth, why the hell are you protesting? You want to change everything, and yet you're completely ignorant of the facts. And I think that was something that it took me by surprise. And at the end of the day, I brought it up with Sebastian, and he basically was like, I don't know what to tell you. Sometimes people get passionate, and sometimes they just don't have all the information. Okay, I get it. And I think that same logic applies in regards to you and the book, because somebody did reach out to me and said that was offensive, and I'm like, I don't understand. This is basically giving material to the people protesting. It's kind of like, what would you rather have it be? People downloading something for free and recalling the names of those who've been murdered by the hands of America's police? Or would you rather they downloaded it off of Google? Like, they just Google searched it and basically helped Google out a little bit more. I mean, that's just it. And it's like anything. It's like a business. It's like a newspaper. It's like any organization I've been a part of, where you always will have those one or few people that they're super passionate and they want to drive the train into the station, but they don't have all the passengers on board.
Not only that, they think that being in the fucking conductor's car is the be-all, end-all. They can't possibly see another solution to this problem, like with me making this book, and the constant need for beration of other people, not posting the black square, not posting helpful hints on, effective protesting, making sure that people, in a way, groupthink so that, God forbid one person has a questioning attitude towards this and say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't go protest because of what's going on with coronavirus. Okay. Why is that mindset so stigmatized of, hey, maybe we should protest, obviously, while at the very same looking out for each other's safety? Okay. And for the technological age that we like to pride ourselves in, why can't the internet be enough?
The issue with that is that literally is what, in a lot of ways, that's what activism has kind of become, where people genuinely think Facebook is activism. And,
I wouldn't go that far, okay, because there's many other applications where activism can take place gracefully.
But I think that's where, and obviously in the time of COVID, it complicates things, because it genuinely means an entire reinvention of the wheel. Because, obviously, and again, having read, you don't have to read Set the Night on Fire to know this, but a lot of that stuff happened because people were visible and they were present. And they were, physically tangible on a street corner or walking down the street, for that matter, whether it was in East LA, whether it was in Watts, or hell, whether it was at CSUN. And I think that's just it. In the time of the internet, it's given a lot of people a lot of ample opportunity to basically say, oh, well, I can be an activist and work at a restaurant for 40 hours a week and make less than minimum wage and still be considered an activist, even though I'm just, barrage posting.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that does not translate into substantial change. It just doesn't. And that's where you need to have a physical presence anywhere. Now, in regards to the black squares, at least in my situation, I posted it ultimately because, I certainly have never tried to be, I've been an advocate, and I've always been somebody that I want to see the good in everyone. I want everyone to do something good for the planet before they die.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reason why a mutual buddy of ours, Will Pond, would always tell people we knew to be better. That's something I take to heart. And, that's just it. In the time of COVID, and especially when you have a lot of people that, and mind you, you can have a lot of good people that they're not activists, they don't march, but they're super passionate and they reach their zenith. These people that I knew who I worked with in a restaurant, sometimes they'd ask me political questions, but most of the time they were just cool people. Nowadays, and this extends to our good buddy Mike, who, by the way, the restaurant that he works at sent him home because he wore a mask that read BLM on it. Come on. I simply don't understand when racism became a political issue where, our restaurant's integrity is threatened because we're anti-racist. Get out of here with that. Come on. But to round off my point, these are people that normally would never, ever, ever be political, and now they're walking in the streets, they're shouting Black Lives Matter, and it's people that are basically they see what's happening in the world, and they're so sick of it. And this is basically their gateway. And when it comes to social media in the time of COVID, this is all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Just for some people. I mean,
Now, when it revealed that these black squares originated from a, let's just say, unlikely source, why was there no why was there no recension of this?
So there's two aspects to that. One of which being, because I did look into what you had mentioned about, something originated on 4chan. Being somebody who likes to avoid 4chan as much as I like to avoid coronavirus, I have not seen anything explicitly saying, let's start creating these black squares and flood, all the Black Lives Matter protesters' feeds. On top of that, and this is what I recall from that specific Tuesday when everyone was posting these, the idea when everybody started, I guess, kind of communicating with each other in regards to it, was to tell people, get rid of the hashtag. You're basically clogging up the whole feed.
Right.
And these are people that were saying that from what other people told them.
Right. That was the point. So as something that 4chan likes to do almost religiously, it's in such a way that doesn't so much harm the official movement as it does just bottlenecks it. So it again, I don't want to put on my tinfoil hat when I say this, but by posting these squares and effectively negating the more important hashtags, they achieve their goal, so to speak, right?
Perhaps.
Of course.
No.
Yeah. So basically, when you have the hashtag Blackout Tuesday with a black square, it's bringing this false solidarity. That's what it was. Okay. And it was revealed that it was on 4chan. Unfortunately, the thread has been archived. However, it was if you read the comments going back and forth, it was less than desirable to see the exchanges. But in essence, it was a way to not so much silence, but to distract the movement. Okay.
Right.
Now, when most people would post these squares, and most people would come together in solidarity, which is fine, and then they would find out, post that to Instagram yet again, saying, hey, false information, which again, great. Why was there no effort to mass remove? Is my question. Okay. And in the age of fitting in, in the age of fitting in online, so to speak, I'm not saying that people are going to be expert at fact checking all the time, but it would have. Should it ever be that exhausting? If someone or something is really not worth your time and effort, are you really going to let someone really passive aggressively bully you into taking a stand? Okay, and like I said earlier, I took my stand and it was met with less than desirable reviews. Granted, that's like 2 or 3 people. What are you gonna do? Okay, there's 7 billion in the world. All right, so with an issue such as this, I feel that there are individual perspectives that you can go throughout and yield your cry for a cause that doesn't have to necessarily align with other people are doing. And with what you're doing not aligning with other people, should they have a disagreeing or dissenting opinion towards you, that's a problem. Okay, because for all that they're concerned, you're fighting the good fight as they are. Probably even more so by creating something that can actually have physical value to it.
Right. Okay. Well, I think too that the issue with the black squares and why people weren't, they weren't emphatically removing the squares from their timelines. When I did my own kind of fact checking on the issue, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, Reddit does have some information on it, but at least for me, I always want to find it from some kind of official source, and typically that's some kind of news outlet or, a journalist that I trust on social media, and for that matter, people that I listen to on other podcasts who this is the very issue they would talk about. And just wait, I'm going to listen to a podcast after we record, and they'll talk about it. And next episode, I'll be telling you, Sebastian, you were completely right. But I think, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just simply saying that I still need to see enough concrete proof, because I think, and let's play it this way. If indeed it was something that it was birthed, just like that alien that came out of John Hurt in Alien, that xenomorph, just like how it was birthed inside of him and it came out and it caused all that mayhem on the Nostromo, I think that even if this started on 4chan, and as much as it was to the ire of protesters that needed to see the Black Lives Matter hashtag in order to get vital information regarding protests all around the country and by extension the whole globe, I think you had I genuinely think that you had enough people that they took it as something where it was their way of saying, I see this happening all the time. Our leaders are abject failures.
I'll tell you what. I'll raise you double because I have the post right here.
Okay.
Thanks to those anons who participated in the Black Lives Matter blackout. For those who don't know, we pushed the hashtag blackout and encouraged Black Lives Matter and their alleged allies to post
not Blackout Tuesday.
No, essentially the same thing. It's just a black screen, along with staying off social media for the day so they can shut the fuck up for once. Keep pushing this tag and maybe we'll have peace within 24 hours. There's the post. There's a thread right there. And while I'm sure most people would say no, that can't be true. Well, look, I'm not one for perusing these sites for sake of news, obviously. I look inside the human mind of, let's say, more contrarian beliefs, It's kind of hard not to stay off these sites. And Reddit is definitely not safe from this, okay? People kind of like to think that Reddit is this grand vizier of content and perspectives and what have you. And really, it's just some fucker getting ready for debate class, because that's all it is, okay? Look.
That being said, Christopher Hitchens used Reddit once, and it was a great video.
I think I could speak for a lot of people when I say that, the Nietzschean perspective is a very favorable one, because you have virtually no expectations of people doing anything for you or against you, okay? So you can basically live your life surprised at everything, which is great, or not surprised at everything. And to tell you the truth, I'm not surprised that certain humans think this way, and that it would be fabricated as a hoax, as it has been done before on this platform, right?
Right.
I mean, there it is. There it is.
Do you think ultimately people took it? They took the old the Hey Jude adage of taking a sad song and making it better, like that. To me, if this is indeed the case, that's at least what people did.
If you want to argue that this brought solidarity among people in raising awareness for Black Lives Matter, it definitely did that, okay?
People are finally standing up to stuff like that. Case in point with Disneyland, Splash Mountain. Today, Aunt Jemima.
It only took 30 plus years
to finally answer the question about like what ultimately compelled me to share the square, which is a weird thing to say because it reminds me of the Seinfeld episode, Can You Spare a Square? Which is also very timely given toilet paper. Anyway, ultimately, I woke up that morning and I just kept scrolling and kept scrolling and kept scrolling, and everybody was posting a black square. Now,
right.
I was trying to make up what the hell was going on at first, and I already had heard about some kind of media blackout that day, because the day before, the official Beatles Instagram page had posted something where they basically said, tomorrow let's turn off the music. To which, of course, when I brought it up with my folks, the initial response was something like, oh, well, that seems very antithetical and, unartistic from a movement preaching for equality. Now, I can understand the premise of you want to have music to empower people. I mean, hell, I was the guy blaring Fight the Power and Power to the People in my car at these protests when I social distance. But it's when the music industry is like, hold up. We're not going to entertain everybody unless everybody is equal. And if everyone's being treated equal, we'll entertain everybody. But as long as you're offending or you're cutting somebody off, there's no entertainment.
Doesn't that kind of scare you, though, that the be all end all perspective has to come from, let's say a corporation or a group for you to get that perspective? Like, it can't come within one's own self of humanity of, darker people are disenfranchised. I realize that. That is why I'm protesting. I didn't have to hear it from the Beatles saying so. There's a bigger platform there. So, I know he's not alive, but if John Lennon was fucking saying so, a lot of more people are going to listen to it. Granted.
Well, and that's the other aspect of it as well, is that, it's, in my case, again, I saw it on the Beatles Instagram. I'm not always listening to what all the younger people have to say or have with their music. I don't listen to all the newfangled tunes sometimes. But for me, when I see the Beatles Instagram, and, I don't know who's posting it. I know that later they came out with a statement that was initialed by Paul McCartney. Great. Perfect. Love it. But ultimately, when I looked at this whole situation, I looked at it as, finally, after years and years and years and years of people sitting and watching and just reacting to it on social media, this was their simple way of saying, I have had it. I am not affiliated or connected with this bigotry that goes on in our country, but I don't approve of it. I don't tolerate it. I don't want it happening to people that I love. I don't want it happening to people that I don't even know. I just want this lack of humanity to stop. I want racism to be over with. And I think, obviously, Instagram and Facebook, they all came out with their, the darkened profile images for both their platforms, which blew my mind because I had to post it on Facebook because I said, isn't this the same platform that was defending Trump's tweets last week? And here they are trying to
there you go.
Get out of
town. So where does it start and where does it stop? Okay, so are you willing to put your hands or to put your heart into a corporation that just over a year ago would change all of their icons fucking rainbow in support of Pride Month? Look, I can understand that if you're willing to come in solidarity, like I said, that's great. But I'm sorry, there is something different and more so something more prominent than an individual sharing his or her own perspective on it and a corporation doing so because they feel like that they're obligated to do so. And the latter I very much have a problem with because they don't care. I'm convinced that they don't, but they want to make it seem like they do. Everyone following, and it goes into an umbrella effect. Every single other person that follows this or that utilizes this application wants to be part of the it crowd. So they're going to share it as well. And then they're going to ostracize you for not sharing it because you happen to have either a different belief, which the different belief is, I think racism is good, which personally I don't. That's just the example. Or you go about it in a completely different way, i.e. you don't post the black square and you do something different in order to show that you're with the movement. And that's what I did. And that's what you did to some degree as well, because obviously we wouldn't have this platform if it didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't trust, I don't trust corporate entities. I don't trust the whole fucking Romneyism of, corporations are people kind of thing, because they're not.
And then I also didn't tell you about the comment that I got regarding my black square, where I had somebody who was loosely connected to you and I won't call him out, but he said that this is censorship infiltrated.
There you go. What?
Which
even
what
you did.
Okay,
but even what you did not even elicit a positive response. You cannot win. Okay. And that is the main problem, because if you have genuine, heartfelt concern for a movement, and people still want to ostracize you or put it in a way of, well, Mancini, or well, Sebastian, you're white. Or
let me kind of compartmentalize it this way, because at least in my mind, this is kind of where this individual's critique fell flat. Because on June 2nd, he had to. This person had to share a like side by side of Donald Trump when he had his pathetic little photo op at the church in D.C. after he asked Secret Service and National Guard to pepper spray protesters.
Right.
It's a side by side of Trump holding a Bible, and below it is a photo of Hitler, I'm assuming also holding a Bible, and this person is basically telling everyone to delete the squares, and it's almost like it's his way of saying, people need to be more strategic and, realize that we're living in a totalitarian state. Now, number one, obviously there's a lot of people who will make comparisons with the Nazis with virtually any form of oppression today. I get that. That's basically the bare minimum you have to give people in order for them to understand what oppression is really like. For the people that have an issue with the Confederate flag, or rather, the people who have an issue with people who have an issue with the Confederate flag, I like to ask those same people, if you like the Confederate flag so much, how do you feel about the blood flag, the flag of 1930s Germany? Because it holds the exact same sentiment. On top of that, analogizing Trump and Hitler is such laziness, because it's not going to wake anybody up who either has not been aware of the last almost 4 years, going on, I guess, 5 if you include his campaign. And on top of that, it's ignorant of history, because even in Germany, Hitler was popular.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he ended up becoming the chancellor of Germany. It was because people were brainwashed into liking him. And even in the United States, we were kind of cozy with him. You know, we were more scared of the Soviet Union than we were of fascism. I'm sorry, my friend. As much as your analogy works, you need to get an education first. Because showing me a side-by-side of Hitler and Trump and telling me what I'm doing is censorship, none of that computes. It just doesn't. And, you know, I want to think this person's head is in the right place. From what I can tell, it is. But I basically explained, this is solidarity en masse. This is the biggest, at least in my eyes, this is one of the largest forms of solidarity I have seen, where I'm looking at who the people are that are sharing these squares, and I'm realizing these are people that mean it. These aren't people that are clout chasers or culture vultures. This is a part of their humanity. This is a part of why I like these people, not just as friends, but as human beings. To which, of course, he later had to say, yeah, but everyone's feed is still covered. If you have people that you know who are going to these protests, then they would share it. But given that it was, like 9 in the morning when I woke up and started seeing all these posts, unless you were already there at the protest at the crack of dawn, I don't think everybody else who's in quarantine and jobless was probably waking up at the crack of dawn to show up at a protest. They were probably posting the squares out of solidarity and then going to the protests. So that's my kind of long-winded way of saying, you know, I wasn't peer pressured or anything like that. It ultimately boiled down to, I was overwhelmed in how passionate and how pissed off everybody was and continues to be. And I realized, like, this is finally it. Like, this is finally where people say enough. And they're picking up the slack from what myself and millions of others have been saying. And so now it's me getting to join with them rather than me asking people, join me or come with me in, you know, X, Y, or Z. So I know that was kind of a long tangent on a topic we've kind of touched on in the past. But if you think about it, it is an art form in of itself.
Right.
In that it is in a way, it does impose a lack of art. It's not censorship. Because you can still have something that basically shows a lack of freedom or a lack of inhumanity or a lack of democracy, for that matter, to slightly paraphrase Palpatine. And, you know, it's basically your cry for help is what it is. It's basically your way of saying, my country is going down the toilet, please help. And I'm phoning a friend here, you know. And I get it. Because let's face it, and you said it perfectly about, you know, what the hell is next with the time period we're living in. I mean, I can only imagine it's going to get more farcical as the years go on.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I hate to sound like yet another broken record, but ending our episodes in this way, it's cathartic because at least we were prepared for what's to come, even though we have no idea what that may be. Well, to prevent further head trauma, why don't we tell the good people where we can find you?
Yes. So when it comes to Twitter, which is a website that, as I've said before, I am slowly losing my grasp of it and grow more and more sickened by it every day. Nonetheless, you can find me at Mancini Ryan on Twitter. And as for Instagram, the gram, as the kids say, you can find me at Mancini Ryan, probably looking at golden retriever puppy pics, just as my way of de-stressing. And then one other shout out I wanted to give, our good friend of the show, Janice, has a new episode of The Jump Off. Check that out. We'll have a link in the description for this episode. And Sebastian, as for you, where can thine uplifting folks find thee on thy lofty media that is of the social kind?
Oh, give it a rest, Mancini. You graduated 2 years ago. Jesus Christ. All right. Well, going down the laundry list, as I've stated previously in other episodes, you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Sebi, as well as the barren fallout wasteland that is Twitter, at Dr. Sebi as well, with an underscore in the middle. That's Dr_SEBBY. I actually went on Twitter earlier today because I got a hot tip that the woman, the myth, the legend, Belle Delphine is back in town. If you haven't heard about her, I highly suggest you look her up. She's the queen among queen of shit posting and just random porn, but like not really. It's more like it's like niche cosplay type shit. I don't know. I wrote a book about her. You could check that out. It's called The Belle in Her Bathwater. It's literally only 4 pages. Find it for free out there online. But speaking of online, you could find me there at Sebastian Shug. If you just type that into Google. You can also send me a manuscript at Sebastian Shug Publishing through my email and or phone. Again, if you want to read my latest categorization of police brutality and systemic racism in America, you can check out Read Their Names by Sebastian Shug, available everywhere. Feel free to also look me up on YouTube and on Anchor as well under the names Seabass and Shugsy Storytime accordingly. There I post daily narrations of random stories that I find. It's pretty fun, mainly horror related. And other than that, that's about it.
And then
also be on the lookout. Also be on the lookout for our new YouTube channel. Same thing, Mars on Life. As I'm stating this now, I am busy exporting the second episode, and my God, to relearn Adobe from 4 years ago is absolutely hell on earth. So
woof.
It is what it is, and to tell you the truth, I'm actually getting better at it. I mean, you just have to keep doing it over and over, and despite Adobe's fucking asinine way of exporting shit, it's actually kind of fun. It's like opening presents. You get to see how big the file is once you've exported it.
I don't know if you got anything else, or are we good to wrap up for this episodic voyeur?
I'm good. Really stoked about getting rejected from the Small Wiener Club. Always a blast. And and we'll see you guys next time.
You've been listening to Mars on Life. Please make sure that you find us over on social media at Mars on Life Show on both Twitter and on Instagram. And on top of that, you can find this show on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Our artwork is done by Zachary Erberich, and our intro music is Space Explorers by Kevin MacLeod. I've been Ryan Mancini. My co-host, as always, is Sebastian Shug. And just remember, if you keep on going, you'll make it to Mars.